Look, I'm going to be straight with you. When my cousin Sarah told me she was moving her family to some cheap, safe city in the middle of America, I laughed. I mean, come on, we all know the deal, right? Safe neighborhoods mean expensive zip codes. That's just how it works in this country. Except, it doesn't. Not anymore. Sarah's mortgage payment in her new city, $847 a month for a 3-bedroom house with an actual backyard. Her old rent in Denver, $2,400 for a cramped 2-bedroom apartment where she could hear her neighbor's entire Netflix queue through the walls. And here's the kicker, her new city has a lower crime rate than the Denver suburbs she left behind. I didn't believe it either until I started digging into the data myself. What I found honestly shocked me, and I've been researching urban economics for the better part of a decade. There are genuine hidden gems scattered across this country where your dollar stretches further than you ever thought possible, and you're not sacrificing your family's safety to get there. Before we dive in, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me if you'd actually consider moving for a better quality of life. I read every single one, and honestly, your stories are what keep me researching this stuff. So here's what I did. I spent weeks cross-referencing FBI crime statistics, cost of living data from the Council for Community and Economic Research, housing price trends from Zillow and Realtor.com, and local economic indicators from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I wasn't looking for dying Rust Belt towns or places where there's nothing to do. I wanted cities with actual opportunities, growing job markets, things to do on weekends, and communities where people actually want to live. What emerged were 7 cities that honestly broke my brain a little bit. These aren't the usual suspects you see on those clickbait, cheap places to live lists. These are places that are genuinely safe, genuinely affordable, and genuinely thriving in ways that most Americans have no clue about. 1. Fort Wayne, Indiana, the city. Everyone's sleeping on. Let me paint you a picture. The median home price in Fort Wayne right now sits at around $198,000. Not a typo. That's less than what some people in California pay for a parking space. Meanwhile, the violent crime rate here is 3.8 per 1,000 residents. That's actually lower than the national average of 4.0. I talked to a guy named Marcus who moved there from Chicago last year. He's a software developer working remotely, and he told me something that stuck with me. I thought I'd be bored out of my mind. Instead, I bought a house twice the size of my Chicago apartment for half the price. I can walk to restaurants and breweries without looking over my shoulder, and I'm saving enough money that I'm actually building wealth for the first time in my life. Fort Wayne's got this whole downtown revitalization thing happening. They've invested over $300 million in the past decade into making the city more livable. New parks, riverwalk developments, a growing food scene that's actually pretty impressive. The unemployment rate hovers around 3.2%, which is solid, and major employers like General Motors and Parkview Health provide stable job markets. But here's what really sold me on Fort Wayne. The property tax rate averages just 0.81%. Compare that to somewhere like New Jersey, where you're looking at 2.49% on average. That difference adds up fast. On a $200,000 home, that's saving you over $3,000 annually just in property taxes. 2. Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where your paycheck actually feels like a paycheck. Okay, stay with me here. I know what you're thinking. South Dakota? Really? Isn't that just nothing? Here's the thing nobody tells you about Sioux Falls. There's no state income tax. None. Zero. Zilch. If you're making $60,000 a year, that's an extra $2,700 to $3,000 in your pocket compared to living in a state with average income tax rates. That's basically a free vacation every year or several mortgage payments. The median home price sits around $275,000, which I know sounds higher than Fort Wayne, but stick with me. The violent crime rate is an absolutely minuscule 2.4 per 1,000 residents. That's safer than most suburbs of major cities. Property crime, also well below national averages. I found this fascinating report from the Sioux Falls Development Foundation showing that the city's added over 8,000 jobs in the past 5 years, with major growth in healthcare, finance, and tech sectors. Companies like Sanford Health, Citibank, and a growing number of startups are setting up shop there because the business climate is ridiculously favorable. What really got me was talking to Jennifer, a nurse practitioner who relocated from Minneapolis. My salary barely changed, maybe a 5% decrease, but I'm actually saving money now. My housing costs dropped by 40%. I don't pay state income tax, and honestly, I feel safer walking around downtown Sioux Falls at 10 p.m. than I ever did in parts of Minneapolis at noon. The city's also got this surprisingly robust cultural scene. The Washington Pavilion houses a performing arts center, science museum, and visual arts center all in one spot. There's a sculpture walk downtown with over 60 installations. It's not New York, obviously, but it's way more than you'd expect. 3. Green Bay, Wisconsin. Not just football and cheese, full disclosure. I had zero expectations for Green Bay beyond Lambeau Field and assumptions about cold weather, but the data here is genuinely compelling. Median home prices hover around $235,000, and the violent crime rate is about 2.1 per 1,000 residents. That's remarkably low. The city's unemployment rate typically runs below the national average, sitting around 2.8%, even during economic uncertainty. What makes Green Bay special isn't just that it's affordable and safe. It's that the community is weirdly stable and invested in itself. The Packers being publicly owned means there's this genuine civic pride that translates into investment in local infrastructure, schools, and public spaces. People actually stick around here, which creates continuity you don't find in a lot of American cities anymore. I spoke with David, a teacher who moved from suburban Chicago. I was paying $1,850 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment in Illinois. Here, my mortgage on a 4-bedroom house with a garage and a yard is $1,320. My kids can bike around the neighborhood, and I don't panic every time they're 5 minutes late coming home. That peace of mind is worth more than any salary increase I could have gotten in Chicago. The school systems here consistently rank above state averages, which matters if you've got kids or if you're thinking about resale value down the line. And here's something most people don't know. Green Bay's positioned itself as a supply chain and logistics hub. With its proximity to major transportation routes, companies are increasingly locating distribution centers and corporate offices here. 4. Des Moines, Iowa, the insurance capital that became a lifestyle hub. I'm going to be honest, Des Moines was probably the biggest surprise on this entire list. The median home price runs about $240,000. Violent crime sits at 3.5 per 1,000 residents, and the cost of living index is roughly 90 compared to the national baseline of 100. That means everything: groceries, utilities, entertainment, costs about 10% less than average. But here's where Des Moines gets really interesting. The job market is ridiculously diverse for a city of 215,000 people. You've got major insurance companies like Principal Financial and Nationwide. You've got tech companies expanding. You've got a booming startup scene with incubators and venture capital actually flowing into the city. Rachel, a marketing director I interviewed, broke it down. I moved from Austin when the tech boom there made it impossible to afford anything. In Des Moines, I took a job that paid about 15% less on paper, but my actual quality of life skyrocketed. I bought a renovated historic home for $280,000 that would have easily been $800,000 in Austin. I can walk to farmers markets, restaurants, live music venues.
The Greater Des Moines Partnership reports that the metro area's added over 75,000 jobs since 2010, with median household income growing faster than the national average. The city's invested heavily in downtown revitalization, creating walkable neighborhoods with actual character. And here's a stat that blew my mind: Des Moines ranks in the top 20 U.S. cities for wealth accumulation opportunity. The combination of reasonable housing costs, solid wages, and lower overall expenses means people can actually save and invest, which is becoming increasingly rare in America. 5. Fargo, North Dakota. Yeah, it's cold, but hear me out. I know. Fargo is cold. Like, really cold. January averages around 11 degrees Fahrenheit. But if you can handle winter, and honestly, modern heating systems make this way more manageable than our grandparents dealt with, the trade-offs are pretty incredible. Median home price, $267,000. Violent crime rate, an astonishingly low 1.8 per 1,000 residents. That's one of the lowest rates for any city in America. Unemployment typically hovers around 2.5%, which is basically full employment. No state income tax in North Dakota on certain types of income, and property taxes are relatively low at around 0.99% average. The city's economy is diverse. Healthcare, education, technology, and agriculture all play significant roles, which means you're not dependent on a single industry's boom or bust cycle. I chatted with Michelle, a healthcare administrator who relocated from Phoenix. People thought I was crazy moving from Arizona to North Dakota. But here's what they don't get: yes, winter is cold, but you adapt. You get a good coat, you start your car remotely, life goes on. Meanwhile, I bought a beautiful home for $240,000, my kids go to schools that actually have funding and resources, and I can leave my garage door open accidentally and not worry that everything will be stolen by morning. Fargo's also got this interesting dynamic where it's essentially a college town. North Dakota State University is there, merged with a regional economic hub. That combination creates cultural amenities, a younger demographic keeping things fresh, and economic stability that's hard to find elsewhere. The downtown has undergone serious renovation in the past decade, with new apartments, restaurants, and entertainment venues. The city's also invested in trail systems and parks. There's over 1,300 acres of parkland, which gives you actual outdoor recreation options beyond just enduring the weather. #6. Cedar Rapids, Iowa, the city that rebuilt itself better. Cedar Rapids has a unique story. After devastating floods in 2008, the city could have declined into irrelevance. Instead, they rebuilt with intentionality, creating something better than what was there before. Median home prices run around $205,000. The violent crime rate is approximately 3.3 per 1,000 residents, below the national average. The cost of living index sits at about 88, meaning things cost 12% less than the U.S. average. What makes Cedar Rapids compelling is the job market. Major employers include Collins Aerospace, Quaker Oats, General Mills, and the growing tech sector. The unemployment rate consistently runs below national averages, typically around 3%. Tom, an aerospace engineer I spoke with, explained his move from Seattle. I was making great money in Seattle but couldn't afford to buy a house without emptying my retirement accounts for a down payment. In Cedar Rapids, I took a position at Collins Aerospace. My salary dropped about 10%, but I bought a 2,500 square foot house for $240,000. My Seattle rent for a one-bedroom apartment was $2,200. My mortgage here is $1,150. The math just works out so much better. The city's invested in cultural amenities too. The Cedar Rapids Museum of Art houses the world's largest collection of Grant Wood paintings. There's a growing food and craft brewery scene. The Czech Village and Nubo City Market area has this vibrant, walkable neighborhood vibe that honestly competes with anything I've seen in bigger cities. #7. Rochester, Minnesota, the medical city with surprising affordability. Rochester's dominated by the Mayo Clinic, which is both the city's biggest employer and the reason the city exists in its current form. But that's actually a strength, not a weakness. Median home price, $295,000, higher than others on this list, but still reasonable given what you're getting. Violent crime rate, an incredibly low 1.5 per 1,000 residents. This is one of the safest cities in America, period. The Mayo Clinic employs over 34,000 people in Rochester, creating massive economic stability. But there's also IBM, a thriving hospitality sector, because of all the medical tourists, and increasingly, tech companies attracted by the educated workforce. Here's what's wild about Rochester: because of Mayo Clinic's presence, the city punches way above its weight class in terms of amenities. World-class restaurants because doctors from around the globe live there. Incredible schools because the city prioritizes education. Cultural venues and events that rival much larger cities. Jennifer, a medical researcher, told me, "I could have taken positions in Boston or San Francisco, but why would I? In Rochester, I'm doing cutting-edge research at Mayo. I bought a gorgeous home for $310,000 that would be $1.5 million in Boston, and I can walk or bike almost anywhere I need to go." The city's designed for livability because Mayo Clinic wants to attract top talent, and that benefits everyone who lives here. The city's also invested in what they call Destination Medical Center, a $6.5 billion economic development plan transforming downtown into an even more walkable, connected, vibrant urban core. This isn't a city in decline, it's a city actively building its future. ## the real talk, what these numbers actually mean for your life. Here's what I want you to understand. These aren't just statistics on a page, they translate into fundamentally different life experiences. Let's say you're making $70,000 a year. In a city like San Francisco or New York, after taxes and housing, you're basically living paycheck to paycheck, maybe saving a few $100 a month if you're disciplined. In Fort Wayne or Sioux Falls, that same $70,000, or even $60,000 because some of these places have lower wages, means you're buying a house, saving for retirement, maybe even building a rental property portfolio. The crime statistics matter too, but not just in the obvious ways. Low crime means lower insurance rates. It means you're not replacing stolen catalytic converters or dealing with broken car windows. It means your kids can have the kind of childhood where they actually play outside unsupervised, which honestly seems to be disappearing in a lot of America. ## the catches, because nothing's perfect. I'd be lying if I said these cities didn't have downsides. The weather in most of these places is legitimately harsh, cold winters, sometimes tornado seasons. You're not getting the cultural amenities of New York or LA. The airport options are more limited, which matters if you travel frequently for work. The job markets, while stable, aren't as diverse as major metros. If you're in a super specialized field, you might struggle to find opportunities. And let's be real, if you're young and single and prioritize nightlife and dating options, these cities might feel limiting compared to bigger metros. There's also the diversity factor. Most of these cities are predominantly white, which might matter to you depending on your background and what kind of community you're looking for. That's slowly changing in places like Des Moines and Sioux Falls, but it's still a consideration. ## so what now? Look, I'm not saying everyone should pack up and move to Iowa tomorrow. But I am saying that we've gotten locked into this mindset that you have to choose between safety and affordability, between opportunity and quality of life. These 7 cities prove that's not actually true. The data's clear. You can find places in this country where a middle-class income actually provides a middle-class lifestyle, where you're not just surviving but building something, where you can walk around your neighborhood without constant vigilance, where your kids can go to decent schools and you can save money for their college. Maybe that's worth exploring. Maybe it's worth at least asking yourself whether the prestige of living in a name-brand city is worth the financial stress and safety concerns. Alright, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Would you consider moving to one of these cities? Are there other hidden gems I should research? And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button because I'm constantly diving into data to find opportunities like this that most people are missing. ***. The American dream isn't dead, it just moved to places most of us weren't looking.